The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I got a great episode for us today, but first and foremost, everyone, please go and peep all of the sponsors at the beginning of the episode. That is Reaper Apparel, Tactical Brotherhood, and my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Now, I know Tactical Brotherhood is new to us. As you can see here, I am wearing one of their hats and one of their shirts today. Part of every proceeds goes to helping veterans. This is a cause I'm very passionate about, so please go and check them out at the beginning of the show. All of the links are in the notes of this show. That being said, my guest today is an 11-time published author, and he has also started his own sports broadcasting, I believe it's broadcasting, website page, and Key on Sports. We've had his man Tony Bogan on. Now we're going to see the man behind Tony Bogan. Vince McKee joins the show. Vince, welcome to the show, buddy.
The man behind Tony Bogan. It almost sounds like an adult feature. So we, first of all, the Stupid Should Hurt. So the fact that that's the name of that is freaking amazing, man. You know, we were driving this weekend, me and my wife, and I had the kids, and we passed by this one park. And full exposure here, we have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. So we go to parks all the time over the summer, right? Yeah. It's free, it's easy, they have fun. And it's almost impossible to get hurt. You got to be a real stupid kid to get hurt nowadays at a park. Yeah. It's so baby-proof, right? And I was telling my wife, I'm like, when I was growing up, it was a metal slide that on a hot day you burnt yourself, right? There was no wood chips or cushion or anything. If you went flying off that slide, it was pure cement.
Right,
and the
gravel.
Chains, gravel. and the chains on the swings were pure rust. So it was like you would ride that, right? You'd get off the swing and you'd have the rust marks on your hands.
Yep.
The kids are so coddled. So the Stupid Should Hurt is so true because it's the first thing I think of. Like, man, I'm like, people got it so easy now, and they should know what pain feels like at a young age. But all joking aside, I love kids. But regardless, though, I have to correct you one little thing. Okay. So, and this is easy. This is an easy correction, nothing major. I don't want to start us off on a bad note.
No, we're good.
But we're a full website. And the only reason I want to say that is strictly because just like you, we have sponsors. So our sponsors pay for written content, broadcasting, which we do the 30-second commercials during high school football, high school basketball, some boxing, some MMA. And we have like podcasting and webcasting too. So full-fledged, I've been a writer for a long time, and I wanted to be the guy behind the microphone. And so the first couple of years of Key on Sports, when we started in 2018, I gave that a shot. I really enjoyed it. And then as we grew and grew and grew, we went from like 4 employees to right now we're like 47 employees.
Wow.
So because we got so big, I had to take a step back from the broadcasting, let other people do it and handle all the writing and editing and posting and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, happy to be here. And, I'm glad you explained the hat too, because for a brief second, I thought that was the Philadelphia Eagles there. So I'm glad you cleared that up.
No, that is where I am born and raised. That's the state of West Virginia. So, but no, yeah, I'm glad you cleared that up. I mean, hey, I'm a lowly comedian. I make mistakes. You know what I mean? So,
dude,
correct me when I'm wrong. When I'm wrong, call me on the bull. You know what I mean?
No. I do not want to start this off on a bad note. No, absolutely not.
No, you're good. You're good. It's going to take a lot to get under my skin. I'll tell you. I've been heckled in the worst places possible. Like, it's going to take I've been doing comedy 10 years. So it'll be 11 years in November of this year. So it takes a lot. There's times I say things just to let everyone know I still have a line that I can cross. It takes a lot to get under my skin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Listen, man, I am over here drinking water out of a Stone Cold Steve Austin water bottle.
Nice.
So that should tell you enough about my intelligence level over here. And just, it takes a lot. I always told my, I said, as long as you never make fun of my grandma, never make fun of my grandmother. That was my only rule growing up. She was the sweetest little old Italian lady. And now it's never make fun of my kids. So as long as you don't cross my grandma or my kids, which I know you won't, we'll be good to go.
No, I won't, because I'm the same person. Don't cross my son, and do not cross grandma, because that will be the end of you. So hey, I gotta ask you, man. Just give people a little bit of background. So where did you grow up? Like, where did you go to school, colleges, etc., and take us through a little bit of that and a little bit of your background.
Great question. Thank you. So, this is funny too, because it's like you're from West Virginia. So if you don't know certain places, it's okay. But I'm guessing that you have flown since the time you've been living in, since you've been in Ohio, right? Have you ever had a fly out of Cleveland Hopkins Airport?
I have not, but
really?
Almost one time though. But we actually had to change airports and actually ended up going to Akron instead of Cleveland. So yeah.
Well, let me throw this one at you. Have you ever been to the IX Center?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So where I grew up is right there by the airport and the IX Center.
Okay.
And in fact, so I grew up it's in Cleveland. They call it West Park, the West Park area. And ironically enough, I grew up poor, I'm not gonna lie, kind of came from absolutely nothing. And we got bought out by the airport. So the airport, when they expanded, kind of knocked all that down, right? So all the houses got knocked down. We had to move to North Olmsted because it was the cheapest suburb that we could afford. And that, ironically enough, I was in like third or fourth grade, and that is when I started writing as a kid because I got made fun of a lot. We came into kind of a preppier city, and we were these Cleveland boys, right? So it took a while to make friends. So as that was going on, I would do a lot of writing. I'm not embarrassed to admit I had a journal as a kid, and I'd put down my feelings in this journal, and I would do baseball stats, and I'd watch wrestling and write down who won and lost and stuff. So I really got this really desire to want to be a writer, So growing up, fast forward the story here, through high school, through North Olmsted High School, when I was 18 years old, that's really when things kicked in for me, because at 18, I had played baseball my entire life. So through high school, I played baseball. Well, we knew, my grades were really good, but my parents were poor. And I knew that there was college just wasn't going to happen. Right. So it just wasn't going to happen. And I was working my ass off too. Excuse me. I was working my butt off. Yeah. Okay. I was working really hard, with the good grades and working part-time and all that stuff. But college at that point just wasn't an option. So I knew my days of probably being around baseball and sports were kind of limited at that point. So I started coaching Little League Baseball as an 18-year-old senior in high school. And ironically, it led to everything I have today in the writing world and the broadcasting world with McKee on Sports, because at 18 in North Olmsted, I went to the city hall and the rec league and everything. I said, hey, played baseball, I want to coach it. And they said, listen, we have a bunch of kids no one else picked because they have not played before. Some of them are from broken homes. Some of them have disabilities. And if you want to take this on, we're going to tell you right away, you're not going to win a game. it's going to be a horrible summer for you and these boys, but if you really want to take this on, you could try it out. I'm like, bring it on, right?
Let's do it.
Bring it on. So, sure enough, we won the championship. We ended up being the best team in the league. Yeah, it was legitimately like one of those Bad News Bears Disney stories, but for real, right? So I'll fast forward again. So I was 18. That was the greatest summer of my life.
Oh, absolutely.
It was amazing. Years and years go by. At this point, I am engaged. I'm living on my own. I'm engaged to get married and stuff. And my wife is going to college at this time to get her master's degree. So every night I'm at home and I'm like, what do I do with my time? I'm not a big drinker. I don't party. I was playing video games at that time when actually, before I had kids and actually had time to play a video game. But right. So I'm like, but what do I do with this free time? I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm going to write a book, thinking it was easy. Didn't realize how hard it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to write a book and a story about those kids I coached that one summer. Because that was the only time I did it. It was like a one and done type thing. Because right after that, I started working full time and welcome to the real world, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was, I started working on that book in February of 2009. So we're coming up pretty soon here in almost 14 years or whatever it's been. And so I wrote this book, and before something is a book, it's a manuscript. So I had written the manuscript, and it took about a year and a half to write, right around like 250,000 words. So it's like novel size.
Wow.
It's called Hero. And so I started working on it 2009 through 2011, got married, and then tried to get it published, So really the first year of me and my wife being married, we were obviously looking to buy a home and doing all the adult things. But on the side, I was still trying to get this book published. Well, man, what I found out is that it's unbelievably hard. So I had to just write all these letters to all these different publishing companies. And they were coming back one at a time. And I was getting rejected. So it was the worst pain other than, being rejected by girls my whole life. And trust me, it's a miracle I met my wife. And she's beautiful, like go figure. But so I was just so used to rejection my whole life. But I finally found this guy that I worked with at my day job. And he's like, have you ever thought about self-publishing? I'm like, self-publishing? I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. I had no clue. You walk into a Barnes & Noble or was it Borders at the time?
Yeah.
You walk into a bookstore, you see a million books on the shelf, and you think to yourself, oh, this is cake. No problem at all, right? I didn't realize how hard it was. So he showed me how to self-publish. That's what we did. And it was funny because it goes all the way back to being 18. And that guy telling me, he said, look, you're not going to win a game. You're going to get destroyed. It's not going to be good for you. Don't do this. And I did it anyways, going all the way back. And my buddy said, look, he's like, when you self-publish a book, he's like 10 to 15 people will buy it. You might sell it to a few friends who feel bad for you. You're going to get this book published. No one's ever going to see it. But if you want to do this, let's do this. So we put it out there. And on the first night, I'm talking night number 1 on Amazon, sold 400 plus copies. Wow. Night 1. And I was like, man, this was just meant to be. So it's been a fun ride. That was October 1st, 2012. So it just had its 10-year anniversary of Hero, the first book. And we'll talk about everything here in a bit. But from there, everything just exploded. It's been an amazing 10 years.
Dude, that is a phenomenal story. And I'm so glad I started there. I wasn't even going to start with that question. Honestly, but I'm so glad I got to hear that story. That's an amazing story. I had a little bit of a similar experience with coaching. I've coached my son's baseball team while I was one of the assistants, kind of the bookkeeper, kind of just helping out. It was my son's first sport when he was 8 or 9, 7 or 8 or 9 in that range. I can't remember when. But, he wanted to try baseball, so, we'll go and we'll play. And I'm looking at the practices of these kids, and I'm just like, okay, I'm a sports guy. These kids are rough. These kids they're raw. A lot of them, it was their first time ever picking up a baseball or a bat or a glove. And we finished second in the league, But those first couple of games, I saw a lot of the kids hanging their heads, and they were like, "Oh, this is what summer's gonna be. All summer, we're just gonna get the crap kicked out." I was like, "No, trust me." And at the end of the season, they were bummed that they lost. Obviously, you lose in a championship game to take second, and being a former athlete myself, I know that hurt. But a lot of them didn't realize. All they were thinking about was that that disappointment from that loss. I was like, hey, man, he had a kid. I'll never forget him. His name's Rudy. Oddly enough, his name's Rudy. At the time, it was, coach pitch, but if they missed so many times, they let him hit off a tee just to let him hit.
Yeah.
And every time we had to bring the tee out for him for the first couple of games. And I was like, what can we do with this kid? And just working with them. And it got to the point on the second pitch, like he was starting to rip him through the infield. He was a little dude. He was maybe 3 foot tall at best. He was just just a little cuss, and he was just the excitement when he got his first hit off of one of the coaches was what did it for me. And I've dabbled in coaching here and there. I'm a former swimmer myself, and not this past summer, but the summer before that, I actually coached at one of summer league at town here swimming. And,
nice. Okay.
Yeah. When in 2012, I was one of the Olympic hopefuls for the swim team. I was a pretty good athlete, and an unfortunate shoulder injury just ended that dream. But I knew I could still make a difference when it came to coaching, and the head coach was like, look, we have 96 kids on this team from ages 8 to 18. I'm not even going to let you waste your time with the younger kids. I want you with the high school aged kids and getting them ready for the season. I was like, all right, cool. And again, a lot of them, why are we doing this, that, and the third? It's summer. It's early in the morning. And, just even by the end of the season, a lot of them were coming up to me like, I understand why you were pushing me so hard. I just PR'd in this event, and I wasn't even close to coming to it. And that time right there will get me qualified for districts. I was like, you're welcome. Like, everything we do as coaches is for a reason.
And they remind you of that too, and you see them later on in life, they'll remind you of those things.
So some of them still have my number, and, I haven't coached in couple years. I wish I had more time in my day, just so I could get back into coaching. I know you're a busy man too.
I hear it.
But I'm running a merch store. I'm handling a comedy career. This podcast. I still have a day job too as well, and a wife and a son. Bouncing all that. Yeah. I still love it when I see people at my day job. I'm like, hey, what are you doing on your day off? I'm like, what's a day off? I don't know what that is. Yeah. I take Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off.
Hey, dude, I feel it, man. I'm doing the same thing over here. So, again, full disclosure, I work for Continental Rubber. Yeah. So during the day, tire sales and belt sales and anything where you see rubber, Continental. So I live North Olmsted, driving to Fairlawn, Ohio. So a good 45 to 50-minute trip every day to work, 50 minutes home. But that's the grind, right? 2 kids, my wife, my daughter played travel basketball this year from 3rd grade. I had no clue it was that intense, so I'm covering high school sports 3 nights a week. She has practice 2 nights a week in a game, and there's no days off, right? Sundays I spend working, covering the Browns and everything else. So it was, you don't have many days off. But I wanted to go back to something you said that I thought was really interesting, super quick, because I always forget going back to Hero, that team. It's funny that you said that, because I knew too, right? So after a few practices, I'm like, we're going to be in some pretty deep water, right? Like, I could tell pretty quick. And the city of North Olmsted, now if we got caught doing this, we'd probably get thrown out of the league. I didn't realize, being 18, being naive about things, I didn't know there's all kinds of rules. So the city of North Olmsted gives you 10 dates in which you could practice before the season begins, okay? So 10 practices is all you get with a baseball field. And that doesn't count rain. If you get rained out, you're screwed. Right. One less practice. Okay? So I didn't know that. I knew we had that 10. But I'm like, all right, I will find us places to practice on the other nights of the week. So that's what we did. We would go to behind elementary schools where there was nothing but open fields of grass and practice. And we were doing this on a regular basis. So before the season even began, we started practicing the first week of March. The first game wasn't until Memorial Day weekend. We had 2 months worth of regular practice under our belts. Nobody quit. Nobody missed a practice. it was like these kids felt that somebody was believing in them, right?
Right.
And again, at the time, being a senior in high school, all I did, I had the part-time job and I was going to school during the day, so I had a little bit more time, and so we were practicing. So by the first game, even though we did get crushed the first game, I'll never forget that either. But I knew, I was like, okay, you guys are good. I know you could win. I know you can be better because of those 2 months we spent grinding while those other kids were playing video games and having play dates and Lord knows what else. We were working our asses off. Now, again, I look back at it 23 years later, I probably broke about 80 rules I didn't realize existed. But, I like, college recruiting and everything nowadays and how insane all the rules are.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I didn't care. 18 years old, I've always learned it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. And we just went and just practiced. So, but, your swimming thing and coaching and everything, what people realize, being a writer, being a comedian, being a coach, it's all a labor of love, right?
Yeah.
We don't do any of this full time. We wish we did. If you're successful enough, you will. And I can tell by talking to you, you're on the right path for sure. I think I am as well. And I think too, with that passion, that labor of love, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You have to start somewhere. And nobody does it. I'm a huge wrestling fan. Again, go back to the old Stone Cold water bottle here. All those guys that you see on a Monday Night Raw or at a WrestleMania, all of them, for you wrestling fans out there, have wrestled in high school gymnasiums in front of 20 to 25 people, maybe making $10. Everybody has to start somewhere.
I remember early on in, my comedy career and trying to grow that. And, my parents were pissed.
Yeah.
I know. Graduated college, took me 5 years to graduate from Bethany College, not the cheapest school in the world to go to, but, I had some scholarships for swimming and stuff like that helped out a little bit.
Sure.
But, and they were like, so we spent all this money for you to go and get a degree and you want to go on stage and tell jokes. You've had three shows this week that you've done. How much did you get paid? Italian parents. That was my dad.
Yep.
You make any scratch on this? Like, what are we what are we doing here, Mike? And it was like,
yes.
Yeah, right now I'm getting paid in experience.
Yeah.
He didn't understand. It was all cash. Where's the money? Why there's got to be money in it. I was like, you know what? There will be that. Trust me. One day, I know you don't see it right now because you've been a steel mill worker your entire life. Nothing against you. It's a great living, and you've kept a roof over our head and everything like that. And you bust your ass every day. I'm busting my ass in a different way.
Yep.
Going, and you know what? I'm on the road a lot. I was driving.
Yeah.
I remember to like Indiana and Illinois from West Virginia at the time, doing 10 minutes of comedy. Maybe the promoter or whatever was nice enough to give me a little bit of gas money to get back. And I'd turn around and I would drive back, maybe get 2 or 3 hours of sleep, have to get up and go to my day job.
Yeah. No, I know it well. And you're lucky if you get a free drink.
And
man, is that the truth?
And, now, luckily, I am signed by a startup company, TL Entertainment. I will shout them out every time. I'm so thankful for them, getting me, more shows. And, now I can be like, Dad, it's been almost 11 years, but the money's coming in now. You know what I mean? I'm starting to, you'll see. One day you'll see me on TV. I'm telling you right now, you'll see me on TV. And he's still just like, I still think you just need a job, Mike, and just work. And I was like, yes. Just his old school mentality. And it's funny when he calls me all the time and he's like, are you busy? I'm like, always, but what's up? I always got time for the old man. What do you got, Dad? And he's just like, well, I mean, what are you doing? I was like, well, Dad, I'm doing marketing for the merch store, and after that, I got to do marketing for the podcast. I got to reach out to some more sponsors. I got to do this. I got to do that. And for my actual day job, I got to, call 4 or 5 other more customers. Plus, I have to record a show in like an hour and a half. So what do you got? What I mean? And he's just like, man, for someone who's keeps calling yourself the struggling comic, you seem to be doing a lot. It's like, well, yeah, that's part of the grind. People don't see that grind, and this all ties back. This is why this is the Rants podcast, is because this is nothing can be a short story, but it goes back to that grind and what you were talking about with those kids and going extra practices, which right now that would be completely frowned upon, and like, oh, you're doing extra, no,
Yeah. That's
but
less time away from his tablet.
exactly, how are we going to keep him mind numb whether he's not in front of a screen? But
it's wild too, because when I say labor of love, right? So again, people will go into a bookstore, and I've had so many people tell me, like, what do you mean you don't, like, you wrote a book, why do you have to have a day job? Because when someone buys a book for $20, the author sees maybe 46 cents of that.
Yeah.
The other $19.50 go, half of it right away goes to the retail store. So everything's retail 50%, right?
Yep.
So the retail store is going to buy it for $9, turn around, sell it for 18 or 10 for 20. Then that other $10, portion that goes to the publishing company, the editor, the copywriter, the person who does the cover for the book, the people who deliver it. So it's like, no, I almost swore again. Yeah, no crap.
You can swear. You can swear. I'm not afraid of 4-letter words or anything in the show.
It's like, of course I have to work a full-time job. Like, it's 46 cents a book. I mean, you sell 1,000 books. Yeah, it's $460. That's half of a rent payment. Like,
right.
Don't get me started, So that's the deal. And just like you said, I'll say this too. Like with your dad making that call. For me, it's my wife, right? So for my wife, the biggest thing we talked about when I started doing sports writing back in 2000, at the end of like 2015, early 2016, was you're going to know where I'm at, right? And in the beginning, there was no money, and I'll tell that story in a little bit here. But in the beginning, there was absolute zero money, but you're going to know where I'm at, right? Not that she ever had to worry in the first place. Right. I was always home. But I said, listen, I'm like, I'm not going to be at the bar with my friends. I'm not going to be at some bowling league or some, bullshit dart league. Like, I am going to be in a press box with other men, right? You're going to know where I'm at, you know what I mean? And you're going to know when I'm home, and you're going to know I'm following my passion. That way I'm not bitter. That way I don't get home for from a 45, 50-minute drive every single day and a 50-hour work week every week on my real job, and just, drink myself to death or something, because I have this other passion in life, just like you do with the comedy, and it makes those miles seem so less on those drives, because there is hikes. I've gone to Buffalo, Chicago, Toronto, Detroit. I'm trying to think of all the local cities, Pittsburgh, Columbus. No money, but just to cover the UFC, right? Because I knew by being credentialed by the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, that was going to go ahead and put my name on the next level. That's an awesome thing to have on your resume. No pay. I'm paying for the mileage. I'm paying for the hotel. Mm-hmm. Because I knew, right? And again, it's wild because the UFC is one of my favorite stories here. And it's a quick one. So the UFC comes to Cleveland. Instead that I made all the drives everywhere else. They come to Cleveland for the first time, 2016. And I'm like, hell yeah, baby. I'm like, it's in our backyard. I'm like, this is great, right? So they come September 10th. I know the date for a reason. I'll get there in a second. September 10th, 2016. My wife is 9 months pregnant. Her due date is September 10th, 2016. She's sitting on the bed, and at this point, we already have our 3-year-old Maggie. And Maggie's cuddled up next to her, and she's rubbing her stomach a little bit. And Maggie, when Maggie was born in 2013, she was 2 weeks late, and they had to induce my wife, because it's like a woman can only be pregnant so long.
Right.
So with Madeline, I'm thinking like, okay, we got at least a day or two to buy here. So as long as she doesn't go into labor tonight or today, we are good. I'm getting dressed and everything, putting on the suit and tie, because when you cover a major event like that, you got to dress real nice.
Absolutely.
And she's laying on the bed, just rubbing her belly. And I'm like, are you okay? I'm like, positive you want me to go do this? I'm like, positive. And she's like, yeah, no problem. She's like, you've driven everywhere. I'm like, she's like, this one's right here for you. Go in and do it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, only call me if you go in labor. I'm like, please only call me if you go in labor. She's like, okay. So UFCs are 10 fights. First 5 fights go off without a hitch. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, all right, we're golden, right? They start the pay-per-view. This was the night with CM Punk making his debut.
Yeah.
So it was a big night. It was the night Stipe's first title defense, Stipe Miocic, who was in a book I'd written called Ohio Warriors. It was a big deal. And sure enough, man, they start that pay-per-view, phone rings, bada boom, bada bing, water broke. I'm like, call my dad. We'll get you to the hospital at Fairview Hospital, again, over by that airport. And I'm like, I will be there ASAP. So, yeah, I mean, stuff happens. Obviously, I left right away, and I made it as she was pushing. And I saw my daughter Madeline born 6 minutes. I got there with 6 minutes to spare. So if you can imagine a pregnant woman, screaming, pushing out that baby. The doctors are rushing in. They barely got there because it was like this emergency birth. And I'm in there with a 3-piece suit, like Mr. Cool or whatever. But, inside my brain, I'm thinking, thank God this little baby waited 6 minutes or else I would have been a dead man. So,
absolutely.
The grind is all I say. The pictures are classic.
That's
like there's pictures. Her hair's going every which way.
And you're in this
my dad's all disheveled. Yeah, and I'm just like,
suit. Hey, daddy over here. I gotta say, Vince, that's probably the best story I've heard on here in 3 seasons. That's by far the best story I've heard, and it has a fantastic ending that you made it. You got to see at least 5 fights in the UFC. I know the pay-per-view was, the big thing. I'm a huge UFC fan, but
nice.
The fact that you were able to make it for that is just obviously just a good ending to that. So I gotta ask this question. What. Was it just your sheer passion for sports to start your own sports business? And was that really the deciding factor for you, or was there anything else?
Yeah, I got screwed. So,
okay.
Not going to lie to you.
Perfect. I love it.
So basically, here's the nuts and bolts. And remind me at some point to tell you the story of Fight Maria Fight and also the library book. 2 classics. I had to tell you. Okay, so God rest his soul. He was a good man. His name was Matt Lowy, and he had a company called NEO Sports Insiders. Now, at this point in 2015, I was about 8 books in, 7 or 8 books. I met all these athletes. All the covers are right here of all the books. And I mean, my life was great. I was still working full time and all that, but I met Larry Nance and Craig Elo and Joe Tates. Kenny Lofton, Mike Hargrove, like all these people I looked up to as a kid, right? And I was writing these books and everything was great. I bumped into Terry Pluto. And Terry Pluto is the most famous Cleveland-based author. So when people think about Cleveland sports books, they think about Terry Pluto, and I understand that. And I think I'm like a solid second, which is fine. So, Terry says, he goes, what are you doing to promote your books? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I go to the book signings. I give speeches at schools and colleges and churches and stuff. He's like, you should write a blog or get involved with the newspaper or something, because even if you're freelancing, your name will get out there and more people will buy the books. I said, okay, sure. So I went to Cleveland.com, the plain dealer, and I said, hey, look, I'll go cover high school football for you this coming year. And they said, sure, no problem. We're like, here's the thing, man. They're like, we don't want written content. We want videos. And we need you on the field taking videos. I said, look, I am 5'6" standing on a dictionary, right? I don't know what kind of great videos you think you're going to get. I'm like, anybody can walk past me and I'm not going to be able to get around them. So I did it for like 3 weeks and I hated it because, again, I wanted to write. So I would spend half the game on the field and then the other half of the game in the press box. But that half of the game I spent in the press box, I loved it. It was like an addiction right away. Like I said, I really don't drink or do anything. So for me, like that was my addiction, right? That was like, I couldn't get enough of that. And coming into the next year, I was like, I don't want to I don't want to freelance for the plain dealer because that sucked. You know what I mean? Like I want to do something where I could write full time during the games.
Right.
Freelance during the games. So Matt Lodi, again, has since passed away, had a website called NEO Sports Insiders. And I'll give Matt credit. He flat out told me I'm not going to pay you. So I'm like, okay. So I did this for Matt Lodi for 3 years. And I ran pretty much everything when it came to bringing in sponsors to the company. I would get a small cut of the sponsorship rate.
Okay.
I was bringing in writers. I was scheduling. I was working for this guy like 50 hours a week, if not more, for next to nothing. Almost never, very, very little. And it's probably going to start a war if people see this, but it's the truth. I don't care anymore.
Perfect.
So after 3 years of doing it, though, I thought to myself, I'm like, I'm a sucker. And people kept telling me, like, for 3 years, they're like, you're a sucker. Like, what are you doing? They're like, you're working your ass off for this guy constantly, and you're not seeing a dime, right? But just like you with the comedy stuff, I was like, well, I'm learning the ropes. I'm making connections. I'm earning my stripes. And that's what I did. So for 3 years, I made connections with sponsors, made connections with every athletic director in Ohio, coaches, parents, learned the system, knew what I was doing. So in December of 2018, that is when Keon Sports was born. It was the same day the Browns beat the Broncos on Saturday Night Football. I'll never forget it. Earlier that day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to do exactly what NEO Sports Insiders does, but we're going to do it better and bigger. And that's exactly what happened. So I told him that I was leaving him, and that was the end of it. We never spoke again, unfortunately. He ended up passing away. And again, he was a good man. So I just want to make sure I clarify that. He was a very good human being, but he couldn't take care of me. Like, I wanted to be paid, and I wanted a little bit, of respect.
Right.
So all that, and you earn that over time. So, and that was the thing. So Keon Sports was born, and just like with Harrow, just like with that baseball team, I was thinking, okay, it'll be very, very little, and it wasn't. It ended up exploding. So now we are the largest sports website in Ohio to cover high school sports. We do pro and college as well, and UFC and WWE and stuff like that. But it has grown. It's massive now. We are right up there with Cleveland.com. And it's amazing. I get credentials. I do whatever I want with my credentials. Full staff of credentials. We have people right now covering the state championships of basketball this coming weekend and next weekend, wrestling, hockey, all that good stuff. It's been a dream come true. And at the end of the day, I'm my own boss, which is amazing. I got a great vice president, Cole McDaniel. I want to shout out Cole. And it's a grind. I do Keon Sports probably, again, 50 to 60 hours a week on top of my real job. And but it's been a dream come true. The level of respect. Last week I was covering a basketball game. I walked in, and this lady comes up to me, and she starts crying and gives me a big hug. Come to find out, it's the referee. It's the official that night, one of the officials for the basketball game. But she's crying because she's so happy. And she goes, what you do for female athletes, high school girls basketball players, she's like, no one else does it but Keon Sports. She's like, you are the guy who finally gave women's basketball some respect in this part of the state. And, she gave me this giant hug, and then turns out she was the official that night, So you never know who knows who you are. I'll be walking up the stands and someone will stop me for a picture. And these are all the same things that are probably starting to happen to you now.
Yeah.
And will so even more. And you think back to those nights where you made no money, you're driving home making no money, but you got that experience. And that's why when I say NEO Sports Insiders, I don't regret a minute of it. Because even though it was 3 years of, people calling me a sucker, it created Keon Sports, which has now gone strong for 4+ years. I have an amazing staff. Tony Bogan, and it's shout out for him as well. And it's one of those things because, I'll say this one thing and then I'll drop it. So when I was going to leave NEO Sports Insiders, I said, well, I have to be prepared to do this on my own. When I leave, I don't expect all these people to get up and leave with me. They're going to hear that I'm gone. Maybe they'll come with me to the Keon Sports website. Who knows? Probably if I get one guy, I'll be happy. Every single one, except one, got up from any of the Sports Insiders and said, we're following Vince, and left. And which created a massive divide between me and Matt for the rest of his life. He passed away a couple years later. But it was bad, right? It was a war because it was like WCW versus WWF back in the old days when people were jumping shit with the Monday Night Wars. That's what happened. But I didn't expect that. Every one of his writers but one got up, followed me right over to Keon Sports. So I started Keon Sports thinking it was going to be me and a wish and a prayer, and it was me and a full staff right away. So goes to show, man, you treat people with respect, you're honest to them, you don't screw them, and they'll work hard for you, and that's what happened.
That is the best ending to that story. That when you said I'll leave it here and I'll drop it, I was like, oh, it's gonna get good. This is gonna get good.
As the lightning bolt comes from the ceiling at any moment. Here.
Oh no, man! Oh, see,
it is what it.
It is what it is. I hate that saying because I've heard it my entire life. I think that it makes my skin crawl, but it fits in so many situations.
It's so true. It's like, hey, we just got screwed, but deal with it. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah,
and it's to the point now. Like there was One show, and I haven't talked about this on here. I've hinted a little bit on my social media and on my TikTok page and everything like that, but I've never actually fully told this story. But since you told that, I'm going to tell this. And then we'll get into this last segment here, and then we'll wrap this up. I know I don't want to take up too much of your evening here as we're recording here. I know we're both busy guys, but I got to tell the story. So I get in contact with this promoter. And he's putting on these shows, and he's doing all this other stuff, and he's trying to build his brand, which I respect. And he's like, hey, man, I see your bio. You've been doing this 9 years. What I'm trying to do is to give these up-and-comers like yourself their first half-hour special. It's going to air live on Roku. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. I was like, bet, sign me up. What does it pay? That's always my first question now, because I live by that Joker and the Dark Knight mentality. If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Right.
And he goes, well, ticket sales, you'll get a percentage of the ticket sales, and there's a flat rate. I was like, cool. And so I do all my promotions on my end. He does like one or two, and we had to change dates. There was a whole bunch of issue which happens in this industry, which it is what it is. Venues, I'm used to it. I just roll with the punches now. I'm like, cool, give me the new flyer. I'll bust it out. So I did. Yeah. I bust out the new ticket link, everything like that for pre-order tickets. Now, 9 times out of 10 in comedy, pre-sale tickets don't mean shit. Nobody is going to buy a pre-sale ticket. They're just not. They're going to show up and they're going to buy the ticket at the door.
Something can come up that night. You don't know.
Exactly. And so I get there, and there's maybe 50 to 60 people here. It wasn't the biggest show I've done. Wasn't the smallest show I've done. It's right in my kind of happy medium for what I was wanting to do and being on camera for the first time and everything like that. So cool. Whatever. I'm cool with it. End of the show comes. I was like, hey, man, we talked about payment. I had my flat rate plus the tickets. He goes, we never discussed flat rate. I said, I'm sorry, what? I drove 2.5 hours here to Cleveland to do this. I got all these people that said they would come. You changed the date and then the start time and then all this other stuff. And there's 50 or 60 people in here. All right, where's my cut of the door? He goes, oh, that was only on pre-sale. He gave me $5.
Whoa.
And his name is Andrew Bryant. I'll call him out on here. I don't care. And he gave me $5 on Cash App like a week and a half later. And it was to the point, like, I was messaging him every day, like, yo, man, like, we had a verbal agreement, like, we had a deal. I don't do anything without my flat rate. A flat rate. He's like, why would I pay somebody a flat rate when you can't even sell tickets at pre-sale tickets? It's like, nobody buys fucking pre-sale tickets. Like, there's 50 or 60 people there. What about that? They all paid and came to the door. You made one post in 3 months. I've made a post a day for 3 months. That's why that's my flat rate, because I brought these 50 or 60 people here. And
that's time doing that. That's time you are taking to do that.
Yeah. It's time out of my day and my busy schedule. And he goes, well, man, it is what it is. And that's where that saying.
I hate that saying.
It's what it is.
I hate that saying.
And
you know,
it got to the point, like, because he sent it to me on Cash App. And I turned around and I sent it right back with the note that said, clearly you need this more than I do.
Good for you. What an asshole. And you learn from that, right? Like, you learn never to screw somebody, because eventually you're going to be the one having the shows. And you're going to be the one running the things and collecting the money. And you're going to know not to screw anybody. My writers could tell you flat out that none of them once ever have been shorted a penny. They cover a game, they're paid the next day. 9 times out of 10, if not by that weekend, they are paid, right? There's never any IOUs, any of that crap. I got a guy tonight. We got 4 games covered tonight, right? I wanted to do this podcast, so I was like, you know what? We have the sponsorship money. I'm going to send 2 freelancers to cover those games because I wanted to do this, you know? And because I know that once this is over, and once those game stores are filed tonight, there's the checks going on in the mail tomorrow. Because that's what you do. That's how you treat people.
Right.
That's how you earn respect. you know, and as you said, we're going to come into this final segment here, and I'm cool with that. Thank you for having me. By the way, I'm loving this. Thank you.
No problem, man.
So, I have to say, too, because faith is a big part of my life. And I'm not going to talk religion, so don't worry. Right. But I'm very faith-based, okay? So everybody's like, we look at your books and all your sports stuff, but you have this thing called Fight Maria Fight. We buy the book, and then we find out it has nothing to do with sports. So I wanted to talk about this story real quick because it has to do with treating people well. Because every once in a while, you might be in a really bad situation, and you need help, and those people that you screwed, they ain't gonna help you. But if you've how do I want to word this? You've provided a foundation of trust.
Yeah.
Good people are going to be in your life, right? If you're a scumbag, you're going to be around scumbags. If you're a good person, more than normal, you're going to have good people around you, right? And that's why no one's ever quit Keon Sports all these years. That's why we're successful. So Fight Maria Fight, I'll tell you this story real quick. Just like Hero, it's a real life story. And all those sports books. But this happened to me 2016, April. So April, Easter Sunday, April 17th, 2017. I'm covering an event down at CSU, the Convocation Center. There's a Facebook shooter, right? So this guy goes on Facebook and kills this old man live on Facebook Live, like 30 seconds from where we're at. Cool. They shut down the whole area. And it's famous. If you ever go on Google, put in Facebook Live murder, they're not going to show you the murder, but there's all kinds of articles about it. So, we're all like scared, like, oh my God, this is really mortifying, right? Having to drive home. I'll never forget, like, the police escorting us from the building I was covering the soccer tournament in, because I was covering a soccer tournament downtown. I skipped that part of the story. But anyways, sacrificed my Easter with my kids to go cover something. Right? Yeah. So I'm covering something, and that happens. Drive home, I'm like, man, that was scary as hell. I called my mom and dad when I get home because it was all over the news, and I knew they knew I was downtown, and they didn't pick up the phone. I'm like, that's weird. Call again, still no answer. Get a hold of my dad in the morning. Turns out my mom is deathly ill, has double pneumonia, so both lungs completely filled up. Had to be rushed to the hospital. So this is April 18th at this point. She goes in to the hospital. Within 24 hours, they have her on a ventilator. Now, this is way before COVID. This is before everybody knew what the hell a vent was, and the vent was all the talk of the world, right? What the hell's a vent, So 2016. So, I'm sorry, 17. I'm wrong. April 2017. She's on this vent, and then the doctor tells me and my dad and my brother, he's like, look, people don't last on these things, so we're going to monitor it real closely, but this is not good. Then she developed something called ARDS, which is a rhythmic disorder of your lungs where they shut down completely, your heart, it's not good.
Right.
So this goes on for 2 weeks. I start this hashtag called Fight Maria Fight, and that's where the book comes from. Fight Maria Fight. And I bring this up because you talk about the social media and the posting and the attention you draw to something. It goes viral. So we have people flooding Fairview Hospital, saying prayers, praying around my mom's bed, all this stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? 2 weeks go by. Her chances of living goes up from 10% to 20%. You get to day 14, and on day 14 is when you can't be on it past 14 days because of infections and everything. So they say, okay, tomorrow you guys might have to make a decision. So this is now coming up on May 1st, which is a very holy day, the Mother Mary. And my mom was obsessed. She's still alive, which I kind of ran into the story, but I'll get to her in a second. So they all get around, everybody gets around, and then we say the rosary, right? And we're like, okay, we leave, and then the very next day, she goes up from breathing 50% on her own with the machine, they level it out, to 100% on her own. Miracle. So they're like, okay, we're going to take her off this ventilator. You guys can celebrate. This is unbelievable. We can't believe this happened. This is incredible. So they take her off the vent. Monday, May 1st. I'll never forget it. Take her off. She's struggling to breathe for a little bit, but everybody's happy. All of a sudden, they're like, okay, she's everybody go home, because if you guys are in the room, she won't be able to relax. We need her to start breathing on her own, all this stuff. We leave. Maybe 20 minutes later, we get a call, rush back to the hospital. She went into cardiac arrest. Died. Gone. 17 minutes. I come flying in Fairview Hospital down the hall where I knew her room was. somebody didn't lock the screen, so I look in and I'm watching them, pound and beat the crap out of her to try to get her back. 17 minutes go by, she's dead. Kicks back in after 17 minutes, like, holy crap, right? They get her back on that ventilator. She's back on the ventilator, but she's dead on the damn thing. And they say, listen, they bring me, my dad, and my brother back in that room again. At this point, it's like probably 10 o'clock on that Monday night. And they're like, guys, she's going to be on life support the rest of her life. She's a vegetable. There's going to be no oxygen, no brain waves, no anything. This is her life now, unless you let her go. And I said, no, don't let her go. No, please. My dad didn't know what to do. My brother was on the exact opposite of me. We butted heads the whole time. And it was just like, okay. The night goes through. We get to the morning, and we had to let her go. So this is nuts. We go in the room, and before they take the ventilator out, which, again, if you've ever seen this, it's some long-ass tube down your throat. And they go, okay, we're bringing this priest. It was my mom's priest for all the years she's been alive, this little old man. And he comes in, and instead of doing like the last rites, which we had seen them do to her once before, earlier in the week when we thought it was over, right? So I know what the last rites is.
Yeah.
This guy comes in, nope, doesn't do the last rites. Goes nose to nose with her like an umpire would. And again, she's gone, man. Gone. Nose to nose. Says something in a completely different language. I don't know what it was. Makes the hand gesture. Looks at me, my dad, and my brother. Doesn't say a word. Bows and walks away. Doctor walks in, says, okay, we're going to take her off the ventilator. You're going to see her gasp for breath. And then she's going to be gone. Gather around her bed, get ready to say goodbye. We do that. Gather around the bed. They take her off. We're looking, waiting for that big moment. Unfortunately, doesn't happen. Hour goes by, nothing. 2 hours goes by, nothing. No brain waves, no heart waves, no nothing. She's just laying there. But beep, beep. Somewhere there's still life in her that needs to expire. 3 hours go by, nothing. All of a sudden, hour 3, fight Maria fight. She's laying there. Eyes pop open. What are you guys doing here? What's going on? Wide awake, 100% capacity, could breathe on her own, talk on her own, stand up, walk around, eat, whatever you needed. Miracle. Ball game. Fight Maria fight. And it's like, it's the greatest story of all time, in my humble opinion, that I've ever written, because it's real as real gets. We're not millionaires. She's not a millionaire. It isn't like all the athletes on the wall. And trust me, I love sports. Wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. But my mom came from nothing. But what saved her is that she was a good person her entire life. Treated everybody well. And when we needed those prayers, what happened? Everybody prayed, gathered around the bed, 2 straight weeks of prayers. We had messages to the Vatican. It was unbelievable. Fight Maria, fight. I would tell anybody, go on Facebook, put in that hashtag, Fight Maria, fight. You'll see all the posts and the stories and everything that came about that. So, to your point, that guy who screwed you, one day he might be in that situation and he might have one person by his bedside. So, people don't forget about that kind of stuff.
No, I'm trying to digest that story because that's phenomenal. But
yeah,
no, even with him, and it's funny because when I signed, my manager was like, for this last show I had in Brunswick, Ohio, at Geeked Out Pub and Grill, I headlined there, and he was asking me, when he got the okay from that, he's like, all right, I got my headliner. He leaves it up to me to get my opening acts. And he was like, well, I got this one guy. His name's Andrew Bryan. I went, nope.
Yeah.
He goes, what? I went, you remember that story I told you about the half-hour special? He goes, oh, that's not that asshole, is it? I went, yeah, it is. And he goes, well, I'm crossing him off my list for everything. Like, no opening sets, no nothing. Like, and that, I know I'm a lonely one comedian and now one managing partner and all this other stuff, but that word gets around. He could put out all these social media things and flyers and all that. I've told every venue I've been at, if this man tries to get a show here, he will screw you. Do not let him.
Yeah.
And you know what? I hate to be that person, but I don't forget. You want to screw me? Karma's a bitch.
You protect your own too.
Yeah.
You protect your own. Absolutely.
But Vince, we are running down near the end of the episode. Ran a little
Alrighty.
long. I don't care. But I do got to get this segment in because Fitty will kill me if I don't, and that is the Fast Fitty 5. 5 random questions from the wonderful manager of the podcast, Johnny Fitty Falcone. And these are kind of rapid fire, but you can elaborate if you need to. And if anybody knows Johnny, these are the most random questions you could possibly find. So if you're ready, Vince.
The entire reason I did the show.
Okay. Beautiful. All right. Question number 1. What are the best veggies to put in a salad?
Oh, I just had one. Well, hard-boiled eggs aren't a vegetable, so we're gonna go with I like banana peppers, cucumbers, and black olive.
All right. I'm not mad at those answers.
Big 3.
Question number 2. Are fruit salads overrated or underrated?
Under.
Okay. Question number 3. Would you rather live in Montana or New Mexico?
Montana.
Okay.
I'll expound real quick, super quick. That's where the guy who Hero, when it was self-published, he was the guy who edited that book for me. He's also my cousin. He's long since passed away, but he was from Billings, Montana. Shout out to him, Jimmy Frigoletti.
All right, absolutely. Question number 4. Which would be harder to train for, the Tour de France or the New York City Marathon?
Tour de France, because you got that bike seat up your ass the entire time. It's kind of hurling out.
That was a toss-up question. I guess there's no way that was it. And,
I couldn't do either, so whatever.
And of course, it wouldn't be a Fast 55 without an animal question. So question number 5, would you rather have a pet rattlesnake or a pet rhino?
Ooh, pet rhino, I'm scared of snakes. It's the only thing in this world I'm scared of.
Me too. 100%. Yep. Yep. Nope.
No.
Nope. I can see a little gardener snake. I'm like, hey, we got to move. This is. Yeah. There's no way. No, we're moving. This is his house now. But that was the Fast 55. So like I said, Vince, we are running down near the end of the episode. I do give every guest this opportunity at the end of every show. So if there's anything you want to get out there, whether it's one of your 11 books, Key on Sports, or even if it's just a good message, I'm going to give you about a minute, and the floor is all yours, my man.
Oh, first of all, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for spending a bit of your Tuesday night with me here. Also rescheduling. I couldn't believe we did that on Valentine's Day. That's freaking hilarious. But we got past that, so I'm glad that we were able to reschedule. Real quick, keyonsports.com, just how it sounds. My last name is McKee, M-C-K-E-E, so it's keyonsports.com. I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. And all the books are on Amazon, all in the bookstores, but just type in Vince McKee into any kind of Google search or Amazon search. You can find any of the books. And also Key on Sports website, we produce the very best high school sports content you're going to find, as well as WWE and MMA. I am not used to talking about myself, so I apologize if I sound like a complete moron this past hour. But I appreciate you letting me tell that story about my mom. Thank you.
Hey, not a problem at all. That was a phenomenal story, and I'm glad we got that in there into the show and everything like that and everything like that. But Vince, this was a lot of fun. I follow Key on Sports on Twitter and all social medias. Everybody needs to check them out. I will put all of those in the notes of this show so you guys can go and follow them for all of your high school, UFC, WWE sports, and everything like that. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. I want to again thank Vince McKee for taking the time out of his busy schedule to come and talk with us here. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike.
Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there, less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rocket on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.